So here we are talking about the Ten Commandments. Recognize this place here. This is what a lot of people now see as Mount Sinai. And this is not the typical Mount Sinai that maybe you grew up recognizing. The more traditional one is in the Sinai Peninsula, and it looked different. And that one was designated by Constantine because of his mom, Queen Helena. She wanted to be the founder and kind of decider of all these places, like the burning bush, that location, and they put a gate around that. And so she wanted to be the one that says, okay, I'm going to be protector of these holy sites, which is good and very noble. But the problem is when she didn't know, or they didn't know where the actual place was, they went by best guess. And so the best guess for Mount Sinai, I think, was the wrong one. And so that was kind of Mount Mosul, meaning Moses' mountain. But that is in the Sinai Peninsula, but I don't think that's the right one. I think this is the one here. And so it's just interesting, just a little history fact there. And so I appreciate this reading. I want us to look at it again and dig into it. So it came about on the third day when it was morning that there were thunder and lightning flashes and a thick cloud over the mountain and a very loud trumpet sound, so that all the people who were in the camp trembled, I bet. And Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Now Mount Sinai was all in smoke because the Lord descended upon it in fire. And the entire mountain quaked violently. When the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him with thunder. Then the Lord came down on Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain, and the Lord called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. Can you imagine being there for that? Well, the Israelites were there. Just poor people, slaves for 400 years, and they come to this right here. I imagine they thought they've seen the best society has to offer. The rich of the richest there in Egypt, right? The most powerful people. They might have seen some wonderful parades going down through Egypt, but they've never seen anything like this. And so God, as Elohim and Jehovah, is all-powerful and personal. And it's interesting that in this right here, in Exodus 19, we see both words mentioned here, Elohim and Jehovah. And so there's a difference there. Well, the Elohim is the more generic term for God, where El is God and Elohim is like the plurality of God. As we know, the Trinity is the fullness of God there. And it's so interesting, isn't it? But yet we also have here as Jehovah, which people say Jehovah now. But it's Jehovah, and some people say Yahweh. And so it's just interesting we had these two names. Well, which one is right? Well, they're both correct. Did a study about 2 years ago about the names of God on Sunday morning. Went over about 13, 14 different names of God. And so good plug to come on Sunday morning class and Wednesday night class as we dig into the scriptures. And so these two names here are so important. And so I want to look here at Exodus chapter 6, verses 2 through 3. So God spoke further to Moses and said to him, I am the Lord, Jehovah, and I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as God Almighty, Elohim. But by my name, Lord, Jehovah, I did not make myself known to them. So do you see that? God was in communication with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but they knew him as Elohim. And other names, El Shaddai and things like that. But they did not know his personal name, Jehovah. And he says to you, Moses, you're the first person that I've told you my name, Jehovah. Now, if you look at the Hebrew, you see Jehovah back in early Genesis. You think, well, how is that true if here in Exodus chapter 6 is the first time he's let his name known? Well, who wrote Genesis? Moses did. And so Moses, being the first person where God told him his name, Jehovah, as he goes back and writes the Torah, the first 5 books there of the Old Testament, he inserts God's personal name because we have a personal relationship with God. It's pretty neat, isn't it? And so when God coming down on the mountain, coming down to be personal with us, to have a relationship with mankind, all right, he's given us his name as well. And so to me, it's amazing. Because this one here, this isn't just God giving the Ten Commandments. This is really God's introduction to the world. All right? He's had personal relationships with people. Like I said, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Noah. But this is the first time where he's come down and says, okay, people, I'm your God. And now the whole world is going to know him, right? Because his name spread quickly. This is the God that led the Israelites out of Egypt. This is the God who gave the 10 plagues. All right? So this was God's big scene to come here and say, I am here. And of course, he did it in a magnanimous way, a way that we're still talking about today. And so like God does, when God does big things, he leaves markers for us to see, right? You know, we like to do that. We like to make monuments. So we can remember for generations, remember this so people don't forget. So God doesn't build things made from human hands. He likes to leave things in his creation, to leave markers. And so Mount Sinai is one of them. How does it say he came down? With fire, right? So you imagine that there would be part of the mountain that would be burned up. So when I zoom out of this, and you see the top of it right there, see how it's kind of blackened? Even to this day, the top part of that mountain is burned. That granite, that rock, is permanently forever burned. Okay? And so that's why the other mountain there in the peninsula of Sinai Peninsula, it isn't burnt. It's just awesome to look at. All right? But this one has a marker that kind of shows that this is from God. And it's protected. You're not allowed to go up on this mountain. This is in Saudi Arabia area. So it's fenced off, and it's got guards there. And so you're not allowed to go up there right now. So it's amazing. Is this holy? Is this a holy mountain? And so it's interesting. So just look at the map here. So there's Mount Sinai in Arabia right there. And if you look over here on the right side, the common name nowadays term for this place is Jabal al-Lars, okay? And you can see, I'm going to talk about this here a little bit, this split rock at Horeb. You see that over there? We're going to talk about that a little bit. That's where God gave the water to the people when they grumbled for water. Remember that? And so this mountain is huge, isn't it? And so you see over here, this is where they think they have the golden calf, and there's some ancient writings there of a calf, of that idea of Aaron building that calf. So these are real places, right? These are real places. So this account is not a story. A lot of times we may say, oh, I like this story of Daniel, or I like this story. And tell me the story of the 3 little pigs. I like that story too. This is not a story as much as this is a historical account. And I think we need to make sure that we pass that on to our children. It's like, this is a real thing that happened. This is a historical account that we're going to read about, that we're going to talk about. This isn't a story, oh, it's kind of neat, and tell me what the fairies did then kind of mentality. This really happened. And so we need to make sure that we pass that down to our children, and we understand this isn't a story that's made up. This is a historical account that's passed down forever. And so in this scene, God is the preacher. All right? And this mountaintop is his pulpit. And so Moses is his minister. And I just love this aspect. Because so many times, before this and after times, God would speak to people and say, give this, send this message. But this time, God spoke. It's like, this is what I'm saying. Isn't that amazing? You know, sometimes famous preachers go on circuit and you can go listen to them. Here, God came to them. And so there were, we think, a couple of million people Israelites there. And so I can only imagine how it was for them. This whole mountain trembled as this fire came down and smoke billowed high. Have you ever seen a huge fire, something on fire? Remember a little while ago when we had the CareSource building on fire, downtown Dayton? And how that had a big flame up? I don't know if you remember seeing that. I imagine this was at least 10 times bigger than that. That even people that had nothing to do with the Israelites saw, was like, what is going on over there? I imagine it was a black smoke. This is rocks burning. Rocks burning, okay? What does it take to make rocks burn? It's an intense flame, okay? And so that's what was going on. And so now you can look at it and see that blackened top. And that's where we think God sat. Isn't that amazing? I say sat. That's where he came down. To me, it's humbling right there. I can just look at that and think about, and I've done it and just meditated. And it's interesting how God has made us that we put importance to places that mean great value to us. That's why sometimes we still go to cemeteries of those ones that passed on, and we meditate there. We remember places of our childhood, and we say, oh, that's the home I grew up in. And so, of course, it's the same here. And so the Israelites, we need to remember who they were at this time. You know, they have a slave mentality, all right? They haven't just been slaves for a part of their life. They were slaves for 400 years, 440 years. That's a long time. How long have we been here in America? As I talked about numerous times last year, about 400 years. Remember, we celebrated last year 400 years of landing on Plymouth Rock. So imagine all that time being slaves in Egypt. That's more than just a mentality. You define yourselves. Who are you? Oh, I'm a slave. I'm in captivity. Or to be an Israelite is to be a slave in Egypt. It's who you are. So that doesn't change quickly. I don't even think that changes in one generation. So they're in that mindset that we're slaves. And so let's read a little bit here about what happened here 2 chapters before, just a little bit before the 10 Commandments were given. But the people were thirsty for water there, and they grumbled against Moses and said, why is it that you have brought us from Egypt? Ungrateful, right? You bring us here to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst? So Moses cried out to the Lord, saying, what am I to do with these people? A little more, and they will stone me. Then the Lord, once again, Jehovah here, said to Moses, by the way, when you see Lord in your Bible and you just has a capital L and the rest of it lowercase, that's Jehovah, okay? Then the Lord said to Moses, pass before the people and take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand your staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock at Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it, so that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. Then he named the place Massah or Meribah, because, the meaning of those words, of the quarrel of the sons of Israel, and because they tested the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? Isn't it amazing? They still doubted that. Is God with us? It's like, how quick you forget everything he did for you. So they complained for water. And it's interesting to note that they complained for water. They didn't ask humbly. Remember, they just saw the 10 plagues. They were just delivered from their masters. They just saw so many of the great Egyptian army annihilated in the waters. Okay? They just witnessed all this. And they're complaining about the water. Now, I understand when you're really thirsty, you think you're going to die of thirst, I understand it's a topic of conversation. Okay? But you think you would have asked for it. Moses, will you please ask the great God of everything, that we saw do amazing things that we can never see, can never reproduce, could you ask him for some water? But they complained about it and didn't ask. And so it's this mentality, what have you done for me lately? And it's easy for us to fall in this trap as well. How much has God done for us? Everything. He's given you everything of value, everything of importance to you. Freedom, your drive, your personality, your family, everything He's given you. This church that blesses you and is here for you. That's from God. But so many times we think, but how about today? The sun rose again today. What has He given me today? Well, for one, today. All right? Every day is a blessing from God. And so this right here is what we believe is Horeb. This was a solid rock. And then Moses hit it with his staff and split it. And they say that it's obvious when you get there how smooth so many of the stones are around there, as if it's been in a lot of water, rushing water. So imagine millions of gallons rushing out of this rock that's on top of this hill that has no business to have millions of gallons of water. And that is a huge rock. Okay, if you see someone standing there, he's just, he looks small. So this is almost like a mountain of a rock, on a rock. And Moses hit it with a staff. Could you imagine some people thinking before he hit it, like, what is he going to do now? Moses thought that they were about to stone me. I imagine there might have been a couple people with stones in their hands. So if this doesn't work, Moses is going down. Okay? We may die, but he's going to die first. I'm serious. I think they were on the brink of rebellion. And so he went up to this mountain, and Moses hit it, and it split, and water gushed out of it. This is not a water fountain, people. This is enough for 2 million people to drink from. Okay? And so if that was true, it gushed out of there like a river. And there was no doubt, when God does amazing things, He doesn't leave it up to doubt. Yeah, there might be some scientific reason for that to happen. Are you kidding me? So this rock split, and a river was flowing from it. And you can see at the bottom there, it's kind of even a little wider than at the top. Right? So it kind of maybe the water just wore it down, just wearing it out. And so isn't that amazing? When God does something amazing, He leaves a marker. Remember, and I'm going to name this rock. Not many rocks have names. This rock has a name. All right? And so we need to remember that. God provided in a miraculous way. And I contend He continues to do so. A little sermon in a sermon. God leaves markers in us. When He does something miraculous in saving each one of you, He leaves a marker. You. We are the marker now for Christ coming into the world. And we're mobile. We go everywhere. And we take Christ with us. So it's just everything about this whole 10 Commandments I'm going to be talking about this year is amazing to me. And it humbles me and converts me time and time again. And so God here, Jehovah, is so interesting. So we're going to get to the first commandment here. And I'm going to start it and we'll talk about it again next week. And so here, Exodus 20, verses 1 through 3. Then God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. All right? There's so much there, so much in that passage. I could talk at least a month about this, but I'll limit to today and next week. And so in Hebrew fashion, they don't call it the 10 Commandments, they call it the 10 statements of God. Like a good sermon. It's like, these are my 10 bullet points I want you to follow today. And so these are 10 statements. God's not saying commandments. These are just facts. And I like that. It is a command. They are commandments, but they're facts. This is the way life should be. All right? And just like it's a fact, you have to drink water. And I'm not going to make that a command because it's just a fact. You will drink water if you want to survive. All right? So Hebrews, Jewish people, they still refer to these as the 10 statements. All right? And this first one is so powerful. So Jehovah knew that they would wonder, who is this God who brought them out of Egypt? So as they've been in Egypt for over 400 years, they've seen a number of gods. They've seen a number of graven images of gods. So I wonder, these uneducated, not able to read, all these people, mass people, they wondered, okay, which one of those gods saved us? Was it the serpent one? Was it the ox? Which one is it? So that's the mentality. So God starts it here. God knew that they would have this struggle. And so he tells them, I am the one who brought you out of Egypt. The one that's talking to you now. All right? I am him. And I am your God, and I am personal for you. So they were in this pluralistic God mindset, that there's many gods, right? There's hundreds of gods. This is the God of Egypt. This is the God of... And every people group had their God. So when he says, I'm your God, it means something as well. So he says, I am, of course. I am Jehovah Elohim. All right? That's not one name, Jehovah Elohim. That's two. I am Jehovah, personal name. It's very fortunate for you to know that. Elohim, God. Okay, that's the kind of God I am. And so you've known of all these gods, and I'm your God. And so in their mind, every people group had a God. So he says it, speaks it plainly to them, I'm your God. Okay? Every people group has a God, I'm your God. But he makes it clear, and we're going to talk about that next week, that there is no other God. All right? But I am him, and I am so personal, and I want to be your God forever. Now, as God is saying these amazing things, and as he wrote these 10 commandments, 10 statements with his own finger, unfortunately we don't have that anymore. He wrote it with his own finger. The people were doing evil down at the bottom of the mountain. Okay? And so, look at here quickly here, Exodus 32 verse 4, talking about Aaron. Then he took the gold from their hands and fashioned it with an engraving tool and made it into a cast metal calf. And they said, this is your God, Israel, who brought you from the land of Egypt. So the very thing God said in Commandment 1, Aaron is saying something the opposite at the exact same time. Isn't it sad? And you know God knew this was happening. Aaron gave what they wanted and not the truth. And I'm afraid this is happening to people all over the world. There's churches and people that tell the people what they want to hear instead of the truth. What we need to survive spiritually is the truth, not just what we want to hear. And when God says things, he doesn't parse it. He doesn't slant it in a way to be popular in the time. He's like, I'm going to tell you the truth the way you need to hear it and believe it and live it, period. And I will not stand for you not following me. Exactly. And so this is very important. When God said, I am the one who led you out of Egypt, that means you're in debt to me. Have you ever been in debt with someone? Not just money-wise, but someone did something great for you. Maybe they helped you move. Maybe they helped you give you a ride. Maybe they saved your life. You're in debt to them, right? When they ask you for something, you do it. And so, and it's just amazing how that is. Have you ever felt that? I do. I feel in debt to God now. Yes, Jesus is free, salvation is free, but I feel indebted to him. And to me, that's not going to go away. It's a good debt. He saved my life and has given me a life, given me eternal life. It's a good debt. Dylan talked about, is it okay to be in debt? It's okay to be in debt in that way to God. So in Exodus 20, verse 1 through 3 again, then God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, Jehovah Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. Okay, so this idea of freedom, Jehovah gave us our freedom. And it's nice to speak God his name, Jehovah. What a great blessing it is to know his name. Now, Moses was the first one to know it, but we can know it as well. And of course, we speak it with great honor and respect, right? And so, man may pronounce our freedom, but God gave it to us. You know, our relatives may fight for it and help sustain it, but our freedom is from God. And it's from deep within that we know that we are free men and women, right? That's just God-given, that we should be free people. Now, unfortunately, that doesn't mean that everybody in the world's free, but we're made to be free. That's from God. And he makes that statement here as well. So, there are people that are imprisoned. What is your Egypt? People choose what their Egypt is many times, definitely here in America. People choose their Egypt. I want to be slaves of maybe monetary debt. Yeah, that seems good. I want to be slave to this job. I want to be slave to this hobby. I want to be a slave to food. We choose our Egypt now. But God is always there to say, I am here to give you freedom. I'm here for you to be free from all this. And that is so consistent. As Jesus is our God, he does the same for us as well. Galatians 5:1, Paul writes, it was for freedom that Christ set us free. Therefore, keep standing firm. Keep standing firm. And do not be subject again to a yoke of slavery. Stop going back to Egypt. Yeah, it was easy. Yeah, they gave you food. Yeah, they gave you water. Yeah, they gave you a place to sleep. But you were its slave. Is it worth it? And sad to say, I bet a lot of them would say yes. And a lot of people today do the same thing. I do not want to be a slave to the world. I want to be in debt only to God. A love debt to him and only. Jesus made us free as God only can. God did it there when he gave us the 10 statements, commandments, and he did it here when he gave us his son Jesus. So do not go back to the yoke of slavery. And that's part of it. Talking about that some more next week. When people choose another God, they choose to put on that yoke of slavery. Isn't this amazing message that God speaks to us today? God spoke it, 4,000 years ago, and it still rings true today. His word that he spoke 4,000 years ago is still preached today. Is still true today, that he has delivered us from slavery. If you haven't known Jesus, if you don't have him as your personal Savior, if you haven't been freed from that yoke of slavery, and you still are in Egypt, come free, come forward as we sing this song.